When confronted with evidence of the environmental damage caused by pets, many respond reflexively. But humans are worse, they say. The statement is true, but irrelevant. It commits the fallacy of relative privation, the belief that a smaller harm is excusable because a larger one exists. Pet ownership is not separate from human impact. It is one of its expressions. The pet is an ecological instrument through which human desires, industries, and moral narratives extend their reach. To measure its footprint is not to divert attention from human responsibility, but to trace its diffusion into another domain, one disguised as affection. Modern pet ownership is framed as a gesture of care, a private act of affection that appears ecologically neutral. Yet behind the quiet domestic scenes of feeding, cleaning, and walking animals lies an unexamined environmental system. Millions of households channel nutrients, pharmaceuticals, and industrial byproducts into the same hydrological networks that sustain life. The image of companionship conceals a dispersed but measurable form of pollution. Each stage of pet care produces its own stream of contaminants. Dog and cat feces, when left on the ground or flushed into sewage systems, contribute nitrogen, phosphorus, and pathogens to urban runoff. Even when flushed, treatment is incomplete. Common parasites such as Toxoplasma gondii survive wastewater processing, and overflow events release untreated effluent directly into waterways. These nutrients accelerate algal blooms and oxygen depletion in lakes and rivers. Parasites such as Toxocara and Giardia move through soil and groundwater, persisting even after treatment. Cat litter compounds the problem. Most commercial brands are made from sodium bentonite, a clay obtained through strip mining. The process removes entire layers of earth, leaving behind eroded landscapes and sediment runoff that pollutes nearby waterways. During production, silica dust becomes airborne, contributing to particulate contamination that eventually settles into soil and water. Even so-called flushable or biodegradable litters carry pathogens and chemical residues that survive wastewater treatment, ensuring that contamination continues long after disposal. Even when collection is possible due to the consistency of the feces, there are always traces left behind. And what is collected rarely enters any form of treatment. Millions of tons of dog feces are sealed in plastic bags and deposited in landfills each year, an unregulated parallel to municipal sewage systems. Within these anaerobic environments, the waste decomposes without neutralization, producing methane and nutrient-rich leachate that seeps into groundwater. The plastic bags themselves persist as long-lived polymers, fragmenting into microplastics that extend the contamination over geological timescales. In this way, the act of responsible disposal becomes another route of pollution, displacing rather than resolving the problem. Veterinary pharmaceuticals, such as antibiotics, antiparasitic drugs, and hormonal treatments pass through animal waste into wastewater. Flea and tick medications, many containing fipronil or imidacloprid, are washed off in bathing or rain and are now routinely detected in urban streams at concentrations toxic to aquatic invertebrates. Even seemingly inert pet care products, such as shampoos, grooming sprays, synthetic toys, and microfleece bedding, shed microplastics that move through storm drains into marine sediment. Beyond the household, the industrial scale of pet maintenance extends the problem. The global pet food industry consumes a vast quantity of meat, fish, and grain, ingredients that require intensive land, water, and chemical inputs. Pet food production alone accounts for an estimated quarter of the environmental impact of meat production in the United States. Packaging adds another layer. Single-use plastics, aluminum pouches, and laminated bags that resist recycling. The supply chain that sustains pet wellness mirrors human consumer culture, energy-intensive manufacturing, transportation, and waste cycles, all justified through the moral vocabulary of love and responsibility. These substances converge downstream, transforming aquatic ecosystems. Excess nutrients fuel eutrophication, while pesticides and veterinary residues disrupt endocrine systems in fish and amphibians. Chronic exposure to fipronil and imidacloprid reduces the survival of aquatic insects, which form the base of freshwater food webs. Microplastics derived from pet products become vectors for persistent organic pollutants, accumulating in organisms that eventually re-enter human diets. Even aquarium ownership, often associated with an appreciation for marine life, contributes through chemical filtration media, antifungal treatments, and energy use. Occasional releases of exotic species into waterways, whether intentional or accidental, add an ecological dimension of invasion and displacement. The environmental cost of pet ownership remains largely absent from ecological discourse. Cultural sentiment treats pets as moral extensions of the self, symbols of empathy, innocence, and care. This mythology insulates their material impacts from scrutiny. To question the environmental burden of pets risks appearing callous or misanthropic. Yet the numbers are unambiguous. Tens of millions of animals producing millions of tons of waste annually, supported by an industrial network of extraction and pollution. What emerges is a dissonance between emotional ideal and ecological reality. The rivers, lakes, and oceans absorb the overflow of our affection, not metaphorically, but chemically. The love projected onto companion animals manifests as nitrogen, phosphates, microplastics, and neurotoxins dispersed through the hydrological cycle. To confront this reality is not to condemn companionship, but to recognize its ecological form. The pet is not an isolated creature within a home, but an active participant in a planetary metabolism, one that links affection to extraction and care to contamination. Our waterways record this connection with precision, reflecting not malice, but the quiet, cumulative consequences of our desire to humanize the non-human. The future is pet-free.